You say you might be moving again. Don't know if I can take it, starting over, making friends. It seems our life can never settle down. Rolling stones, our journey never ends.
Je suis content que vous soyez de retour. Let's start healing. Hey everyone, I'm Adrianne Murchison and welcome to episode 35 of our Let's Start Healing podcast. I just greeted you in French with I'm happy you're back. Yes, you know what we say. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. This episode is brought to you in part by Denver-based Diamond Light Images Photography. Traveling photographer Justin Murchison specializes in a variety of works, from scenic landscapes to weddings, graduations, and other events. Diamond Light Images captures the gemstones of every memory, experience, and occasion. You can reach Diamond Light Images at 757-650-3334 or follow on Instagram at Diamond Light Images. We have a really fun guest today. She is a singer based here in Atlanta by the name of Eileen Howard. And I'm just really grateful that she's here with us. She is going to talk a little bit about her journey. I don't want to tell you too much. I gave you a little taste of her voice a moment ago. I'm just excited for you to meet her. One of the things we talk about that I do want to share is praying for people, and praying for people that maybe we don't get along with, or maybe that we want to get along with, or praying for people who we're not close to, but we have to engage with. And it brought to mind a prayer that I don't think I've shared. And that is when I'm about to go to work, or if I'm going to a particular meeting with people that I maybe don't know that well, I will say a prayer. And it's sort of my way of surrendering my hope that it is a successful meeting, a successful to both of us, to all parties, to God. It's my way of surrendering that. And so I wanted to share that with you all. It's from A Course in Miracles, and it's only about 3 or 4 lines, but I find it to be very powerful for me. When I pray this prayer, I'm hoping, but my spirit knows that I'm assured that all is going to be well. So the prayer is, I desire this holy instant for myself, that I might share it with my brother whom I love. And what I will do is I'll say the person's name. Well, let's say the name Thomas. I will substitute in the name. And so, for example, I desire this holy instant for myself, that I may share it with Thomas, whom I love. It is not possible that I can have it without him, or he without me. Yet it is wholly possible for us to share it now. And so I choose this instant as the one to offer to the Holy Spirit, that his blessing may descend on us and keep us both in peace. And for years, this has been a very significant prayer for me that really works. In the book that I adore, A Course in Miracles, right before this prayer, there's this paragraph, a couple of lines, and it basically is saying that if we're having a disagreement with someone and we say this prayer, it doesn't matter if I'm in love, if I'm in a space of love for this person and the other person is in a space of dislike for me. It says that this prayer will work regardless. It's only necessary for one of us to be in a space of love for it to be effective for 2 people. So I really love that. It's definitely worked for me for years and years and years. And in reflecting on my conversation with Eileen, I thought, wow, I don't think I've shared with many people that this prayer is so powerful for me, and perhaps you have your own prayer that you say and you surrender when you're about to meet with someone and you really want a positive outcome. So in any case, I'm excited for you to meet Eileen. And she is, if you happen to listen to this episode before January 18th, and you're in the Atlanta area, you can see Eileen perform at the Amsterdam Cafe from 7:30 to 10 p.m. on January 18th. And also, she is going to perform a showcase of her original music on Sunday, February 2nd from 4 to 6 p.m. at Waller's Coffee Shop in the Atlanta area. And she will share her contact information later on in the podcast. But I also just wanted to give a shout out here early on. So let's meet her. Let's get started. Let's start healing. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you, Adrianne.
It is such a treat to have you here. Thank you for being here.
I'm very excited.
So we're going to talk about healing in a few different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had a journey in healing.
Yeah.
And would you share what comes to your mind first when you think of healing for yourself?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's a couple things come to mind. One is physical, a road toward physical healing that's not completely complete. But the other really is spiritual transformation and healing that has happened to me, particularly over the last, I would say 8 or 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
A certain additional spiritual transformation that's happened for me. Really, a lot of that really started when I was minister of music at the United Methodist Church for All People in Columbus, Ohio. And it was a intentionally multi-class, multiracial church. So in a downtown area or a little south of downtown in Columbus. And for 10 years, I worked and provided music and opportunities to make and learn music to people, a lot of people that were marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot from those folks about humility, generosity, addiction, recovery. You know, that was really the start of my journey to then a 12-step group for compulsive overeating, which is my particular addiction.
You said that you learned a lot from them. I'm curious what you learned.
I went to help people. And when you say that, there's a little bit of condescension or feeling that my job as a middle class person was to help make them, I guess, more like me, wanting to help them have economic.
Were they homeless?
A lot of people were homeless or Section 8 housing or working poor or mentally ill or in addiction. And I watched people, first of all, the generosity of those people was shocking when compared to the level of generosity of those who had a lot. And that was quite striking to me. Then their openness, very, we would have a sharing joys and concerns in the worship service, and people were very spontaneous, sometimes, sort of annoyingly so, but many times just a huge blessing. People would just stand up and sing. I remember one man in leg braces in the middle of worship, just getting up in the middle of the aisle and singing "He Touched Me," and it was just the most profound, holy moment. We had people who said, pray for me, I'm an addict. And they'd say, oh, hell, I'm high right now. Please pray for me. This honesty that was very raw, very real. There weren't these masks. Most particularly, a friend of mine who is a drug and alcohol addict. And she and I became close because I invited her to sing with the praise team and with the band. We did community music programs, and wonderful person, also a fantastic visual artist. And she just struggled, on a daily basis with her addictions. And I wanted to help her and be her friend. And I remember vividly a day when she had sort of been off the wagon, on the wagon, and I gave her a ride home, and she was talking about getting to a meeting. And I said, as she got out of the car, I said, yeah, don't forget to get to a meeting. And then as I drove away, I thought, I am such a hypocrite. Here I am, and I've struggled with my weight forever, and food is my drug.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go home. I knew without a doubt I would go home tonight, and I would have eaten, a reasonable breakfast, a reasonable lunch, a reasonable dinner, but then I would sit there at night and watch television and eat thousands and thousands of calories. Mm-hmm. And I would wake up the next morning and I would say, I'm never going to do that again. And then I would do it again.
Yeah.
And this was before I found a 12-step program for this, but I also knew that I was addicted to overwork, to controlling others, trying to control other people and what they did. I'm an excellent organizer and administrator. And if people would just do what I want, things would be great, that kind of thing. And so I was hit in the face with my own addictive behaviors that were simply more socially acceptable.
Right.
That was really the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
Just because my addictions were more socially acceptable didn't make them any less of an issue. And
so she sort of, when you were saying goodbye to her that night, sort of like it flipped a switch for you.
Yes, it did.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely did. And I also from her learned about letting go of control and not trying to fix other people. At one point I had taken her for a court case. It was infuriating. She wasn't allowed to say anything. I wasn't allowed to speak on her behalf. Anyway, when she got out of, I was like, okay, we're gonna deal with this. We're gonna get a job. We're gonna figure out how to pay your
right.
debt.
You had a plan.
I had a plan for her, and she disappeared for a month after I tried to fix her.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that I was again hit in the face with the fact that I was not her higher power. I was not her God. That I had tried in my good-hearted attempt to fix her. I had terrified her and sent her away. And when she, thank God, came back, I apologized and said, I'm so sorry.
Did you realize it while she was gone, or did she tell you?
No, she didn't tell me.
Uh-huh.
I just realized when I didn't see her, I thought, what did I do? What did I do? Here I had, without her asking me to do so, interfered in her life, told her what to do. It was good intentioned, but it was condescending and controlling. Mm-hmm. So these things were, I was hit in the face with a lot of character flaws that I had. Mm-hmm. And then my husband got a job in New York with a Methodist church again, and we moved. At that time, I sought out a 12-step recovery group, and then through the 12 steps, did further investigation of my flaws
by acting out, or
by
examining.
by examining them through the 12 steps. So the first thing you do is admit you're powerless over food and that your life has become unmanageable. And I had to say that even though I'm a wonderful control freak, I had been like a bull in a china shop with people. I had damaged other people and myself. So I had to admit that and admit that I could not control my eating. I had to turn my will and my life over to my higher power. And, and then in the, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th steps and 9th steps, you basically, list all of your resentments, all the things you've done wrong, all the wrongs done to you. And then you realize as you go through it that all of it is about self-will, selfishness, self-centeredness, that this is about, all of this stuff. And that sounds like a negative process. And it was a hard process.
It's a clearing out.
But it felt, when I did that, told another human being, wrote down my flaws, and then made amends to the people that I had harmed. All of that was hard. I'm not saying it wasn't. But oh my gosh, how transforming.
Wow.
What a feeling of being a new person, a new chance to be in a different relationship with people.
And is that because you were able to let it go?
Well, you don't really, yes and no. I mean, as an addict, every day I have to kind of do this inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And the inventory includes, I keep a list of my character flaws and I pray over them and ask for them, for my higher power, for God to remove them. So it's not that I'm like some kind of perfect person. Those flaws,
Right.
but many of them have diminished considerably.
Right.
Some have gone away. So it's not that in one sense, I've let those go in the sense that I let my higher power remove them.
Well, what I meant was the people that you made amends to, were you able to let those specific instances, those situations go where you felt you had harmed them in some way? Were you able to let that go? Because I'm thinking of it really as kind of, and I'm putting myself in this also. I think of it kind of as guilt. That I might carry around.
Yes.
So if I make amends to someone, I'm able to release it.
Definitely. You're cleaning off your side of the street. Now, some of those, in addition to making amends, so let's say to my children, I'm not saying I was a horrible mom, but there are certainly things I did that I'm ashamed of, you know, and things that I didn't do that I wish I had done. And so, you know, I apologize to my daughters who are now grown and have kids of their own. But part of the amends to them is a living amends, which means I try now, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try to treat them differently. I try to be a great grandmother to their children. And the same thing's true of my husband. I made an apology and amends, but part of my amends to him is a living amends, to be different about things like being critical or irritable or trying to control what he does or who he is and trying to fix him or make him different. Just trying to be part of the amends. It's not just like saying I'm sorry.
Right.
It's also, it is a, I'm trying to think of the word when there's a Christian word, you know, where you are really turning
like a tone.
You're atoning, but you are turning over a new leaf and becoming acting differently. It'll come to me later. It's a senior moment, but so it's not just about like I'm sorry and then continuing the behavior. It's I'm sorry and being a different person. But being a different person is not something I can will into being. I have to practice the spiritual things that keep me on that track. Some of that is going to meetings, having a sponsor, sponsoring others. Every day I write in a journal and do an assessment of the day before and say, you know, is there anyone I owe an amends to? How did I do? And I also, part of the physical recovery, I, you know, have a plan of eating from a nutritionist and I try to follow that. But my abstinence is really the night eating. And I have not eaten at night for I think 6 years. I have not eaten after dinner. And, and so that's a huge thing for me.
I was going to ask you that because I think it didn't occur to me until you and I started talking. When I think about addiction to alcohol or drugs, that's something that you're not going to have if you're in recovery. If you're active in recovery, you're not going to indulge in those things. But you need food.
Right.
So,
it's a hard addiction.
Yeah.
For some people, giving up sugar and white flour is how that's their particular addiction, and that's real common. I think we really, really underestimate in America our addiction to sugar in particular.
Oh yeah,
it's sugar it's extremely harmful to the body, and for many, many people, it sets up an addiction to crave more and more and more food and more sugar.
Yeah.
For me, that is not as much my addiction as it is sort of chronically overeating, eating too fast, using textures, something smooth, something crunchy, and the night eating, which was really like, as long as I'm staying busy, I'm fine. But then if I sit down, I'm like filling this void in myself with food. And all addictions are like filling a void, right? It's filling a void that we need to fill with spirituality,
Right.
with a substance, or addictive behaviors like gambling or things like that. We fill it because those are exciting, and they're feeding that. And I should say also, just I have kind of a weird history. When I was young, my parents joined sort of a left-wing or leftist religious movement, and I lived in a group environment, sort of an institutional setting, where the food was really quite horrible.
Oh, I thought you were going to say quite good.
Horrible.
Can you say the name? Are you comfortable telling us what that was?
No.
Okay.
But it doesn't really exist anymore.
Sure.
But the food was really horrible. There was often not enough of it. It was often burned. We were eating in a group environment. And
how many years were you?
Oh, I was in that for, let's see, we started our involvement, which was actually through the civil rights movement, when I was in the 4th grade, and then my parents joined when I was going into the 6th grade, and I actually stayed in it till I was 29.
Wow.
So,
and you're native of what city?
Seattle.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what kind of set up the food addiction. Whenever I could get like good food, I would just, wolf it down.
Yeah.
But understanding that later, and therapy and all that stuff, never helped. It never helped. It helped in other ways, but it never helped me until I did the 12-step program. And that's what really helped me. And it's about physical, spiritual, and emotional recovery.
Yeah.
And I think it's very grounded in ancient religions too. I really do.
You mean 12 steps in general?
Yes, because, so take the main thing we've been talking about, which is really confession. And that's not a popular word now.
That's
right?
True. Uh-huh.
That's not a popular word. We live in a society which is very much, I'm okay, you're okay. Here you go, have a piece of cake. You're feeling bad, have a glass of wine. It's not your fault. Well, you know what? Sometimes it is your fault.
Yeah.
But we don't live our avoidance of sort of a guilt, which I'm not saying we shouldn't, like the whole guilt and condemnation side of religion has meant that we have discounted the value of real house cleaning.
And sometimes we might take on guilt, probably more than half the time. It's something that's so unnecessary. It's something that it's maybe not anything to feel guilty over. It's just something we made up.
That's true.
So it's an unnecessary burden,
well, and that's
period, but definitely,
yes. And actually that's what I liked about the process too of the 12 steps, and you do it with a sponsor so that you can differentiate between things that are really you punishing yourself and things where you really did harm someone else. And a lot of times, women especially, there is a huge amount of guilt that we carry around for things that probably
for sure
we don't need to feel guilty about. But then there are things that, at least I'm just going to speak for myself. There were things that I did need to feel guilty about. I did scream at my children. I did overschedule them. I was a jerk to my husband. Those are things I did.
I had this therapist years ago who used to say guilt was a worthless, useless emotion.
See, I disagree.
And I just want to ask you a question. And what I was going to ask is, isn't it better to acknowledge it and apologize with sincerity?
Yes.
And what good does it do? That's a sincere question. What good does it do to carry around, the weight of guilt?
Well, I don't think it does any good to carry it around. And that's exactly the process is, I think that one of the things that I feel most appreciative about a 12-step recovery is I don't carry around guilt. And if I feel guilty, I guess what I was saying when I said no, if I feel guilty about something, it is a clue for me to examine what is going on.
Right.
And now I pause and I say, okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable about this. Is this something that I need to apologize for? Is it something I need to do something about? Or is it something that is outside my control and there's no point in me feeling guilty about it? It's not something that I can do something about. And it's not my responsibility. And that's the other thing is, where is my responsibility and where am I trying to rescue or fix somebody else, even if they haven't even asked me to? And guilt can sometimes come with that. Like, it's my job. I feel responsible for everything. That's one of my problems. And so it's like, if I see something, it's like, oh, I need to fix that right away. Well, maybe I don't. Maybe it's not mine to fix. So carrying around guilt, no, that's part of why confession and absolution, those are old-fashioned words, but they're really very much part of a 12-step program. Confession and absolution are essential, and I don't think we do them very much in our society. They've gone out of fashion.
Yeah.
But we need them. We need to say, we do go through, everybody goes through life harming someone. We all do. We're not perfect. And oh my gosh, what a relief. What a relief. I don't have to be perfect. I do not have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I just have to be honest.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying too is the importance of being honest with ourselves.
Yes.
I'm honestly, I'm so guilty of so many things that you brought up. With food, for sure. For sure. I grew up having to, with two older brothers, and one in particular, he used to just eat everything. So I would try to get to the food before him, so it would be all gone. So now I don't eat in moderation. If I have a big bag of potato chips, I'm going to eat the whole bag.
Oh,
That's
me
just my
too.
lifestyle. I mean, I just do. It's not even realistic for me to buy a bag of potato chips and think, oh, I'm going to eat half of this tomorrow, or I'm going to eat a third and then the rest of it tomorrow.
You are singing my song, sister. Yes. And so like one of the things we do in our program is we identify red light foods and yellow light foods. So
love it.
Red light are foods I can't have at all. And yellow light are things I cannot eat in moderation. And so I definitely do not keep those things in my house.
Yeah, same
I just
here.
don't keep them in my
Same
house
here.
because they're too much of a temptation for me, and an open bag is an empty bag,
Yeah.
And so there are certain things that I just can't, that are my my addictive substances in a way.
Yeah.
And so I don't buy them. I don't keep them.
Yeah.
And so some of that isn't like, I don't feel guilty about that. I feel honest about it. And that's different. And here's the other thing. If I do slip, and so I'll give you an example. I went to a family reunion out with my family in Washington. It was a wonderful event. All of my, my sisters and their families and my mom and dad. And there was food everywhere. Oh my gosh. We were staying at a big house, and everybody had brought snack food, open bags, everything all over the house. And I had good intentions going in, and then it was potato chips. I could not stop. And I finally, after like 2 days, I called my sponsor and I said, the only thing that I have not done is eat after dinner. Other than that, I have been a mess. And she said, well, thank you for your honesty. You can start right now doing something different. And I went, I can start right now doing so. It was like a revelation to me. And which is so funny because it's obvious. Of course I can.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of clean slate. It's like, okay, every day I wake up abstinent and I have a new fresh day, and it's a 1 day at a time program.
Right.
And so, yes, I had 2 days where I ate my red light foods. I nibbled all day, which is not part of my food plan. I kept my core abstinence, which was not eating at night.
Yeah.
But I certainly did not follow my food plan or my plan of eating. But I have a fresh start today, and I can start over, and I don't have to feel guilty about that.
Right.
I don't have to feel guilty about the past. I can move on in the future. But the guilt that relates to other people, I think that's something we ought to pay attention to.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you have to go far back in your past.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I had this revelation one time. I was in a nonviolent communication workshop, and someone was talking about experience with her son, and it took me to, it was a total unrelated situation in terms of the details, but it took me to my relationships with my nieces and nephews. And what it came down to was sometimes people just want you to listen. And they don't want you to fix them. They just want you to listen. And so I realized that often I would try to fix them. I would try to impart my opinion when it was just a matter of just being quiet, of just listening.
Wow.
And
so true.
I only brought that up to one nephew. It was powerful for me. I think with my niece, I think I just decided I was just going to let go. I remember the moment I said, I'm just going to let go. And as soon as I did that, there was a shift in our relationship that was initiated by her. So it was an energy. There's a real shift, I feel, also when we simply look at ourselves and acknowledge there's a shift in the stratosphere.
So true.
Yeah.
One really powerful thing that I've found is praying for people. And in particular, when I have a conflicted relationship with someone, praying for them. And I don't mean praying that they'll change.
Yeah.
I mean praying authentically a prayer of loving kindness that they feel safe and and whole and happy and free. I found this to be, and I'm going to give you an example, and I'm worried she might listen to this, but years ago, I was received really an inspiration. It was a very strange thing. I received I can only describe it as a message for God that said, "You will never be thin until you love your mother." I love my mother, but I was very conflicted with my mom. We, I'd been at loggerheads probably our whole life. I don't know, probably just two alike. So I started praying for my mom every day. And I can't even begin to describe how dramatically it changed our relationship. I realized that she did not feel heard or respected or safe. And I was able to become more loving, more caring, more listening. And there have been several dramatic indications of that. I'm not going to share because I don't want to violate her privacy, but it has really transformed my feelings for her and our relationship with each other. And I found that it was so powerful that now, if I ever have a conflict with anyone, I start praying for them every day. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's something in the universe that changes or if it's just myself that changes, but it doesn't really matter. It works.
Right.
Because I am, even if it's somebody that I really dislike, I just act as if I pray for them anyway. Mm-hmm. And the AA literature, the core literature that all 12-step groups are based on, basically says treat someone as a sick person, if they're just like I am a sick person, right? So prayer has been a really powerful healing tool for me when it comes to relationships with others. And even for people, like if there are people that I feel I've harmed and I haven't been able to, I don't know where they are. In some cases, I don't even remember their names. Mm-hmm. I can still pray for them and send feelings of, remorse, but healing, that to say, I'm sorry that I harmed you. Mm-hmm. And it's really powerful.
In my view, that's very real. Very real. I mean, I just think we have relationships that are unspoken and they're, someone could be miles away like you're describing, and it's very real.
Yeah.
What do you experience joyfully and spiritually through your singing, through your music?
Yeah. That's like the ultimate. I often think of that when I sing. If I sing, Oh, man.
Because when you're singing, you are giving. And
Yes.
so what is that experience like when people express to you how they've received it and how much they enjoy it?
Oh, gosh. It just makes me feel, I feel like at those moments when, especially if I get my ego out of it, that God is singing through me. And it doesn't have to be religious music. People get too hung up on that. It's like, this is not about some kind of music has to always be like about religion. I sing religious music and secular music. It's about sharing joy and love.
Right.
And I try to do that. And sometimes it's just funny stuff. Like you've heard me do like Wild Women Don't Have No Blues or Built for Comfort. And when we do stuff like that when the band and I, and it's not just about me, I mean, the musicians are extremely important. And when we do that and people are dancing and singing along and having a great time, it's spreading joy. And I recently had this experience where I was like, I really should be doing something more significant. I should be helping people more with my music. I shared with you before that I've, kind of looked for places like I used to do more in nursing homes. I used to do more with marginalized people, and I just haven't been able to really land in any kind of permanent place here in Atlanta. I've done some of that. And I had this revelation that it doesn't matter, that every situation is about spreading joy and love. It does not matter if it's every couple of months dance event that I'm doing at the Amsterdam, in Amsterdam Walk, where we have dancers come and they are dancing, which, by the way, dancing, social dancing, one of the very best things you can do for your body, your health, your mind, everything. These dancers come and they just, oh my gosh, the joy in the room is just amazing. And we just do swing tunes and Latin tunes. And so that is just sheer joy. Just sheer joy.
You brought up Wild Women Don't Have No Blues. And so there is a story around that, right? Because it seems like when I saw you perform that song, you told a story.
That's an old blues tune that Ida Cox wrote. There's another song you might be thinking of called Rise Up and Shine.
Okay.
That might be the one.
Something about when you were going to be moving maybe from Ohio to New York, or maybe it was New York to Atlanta. Your husband came and told you.
Oh, that one.
Yeah. What song was that?
That's called Home Is You. Oh my gosh, yes. And writing music has been, you brought up a good point. Writing music has been another way to process pain or determination or whatever. Yes, we had moved to, take this job in Atlanta, and I had left everything in Ohio. I was the music minister of a church we had helped found. I did a community music program called Harmony on the South Side. I had a career and gave it all up for this great opportunity for my husband. So then I went to New York and I thought, I'm just going to jump in. I've got nothing to lose. And I had a great time in New York. I was busy all the time. I sang gigs. I did theater because I'm an actress as well. But then 2.5 years in, the organization made a decision to move to Atlanta. And that took the wind right out of my sails. I was really upset.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the most upset moments in my life. It was devastating.
This was a couple of years ago, 2 years ago?
Well, we've lived here for 3 years. So that would be like 5 years ago. And because we were still in New York then for another 1.5 years before we moved. I was really, really devastated.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about Atlanta. My only experience with the South was living in Mississippi for a couple of years and Memphis. And that was my experience. And I was, the diversity of New York was important to me, and I just didn't know what that was going to be like here. And after a day or two of recovering from the shock and boo-hooing to some friends on the phone, I wrote a song called Home Is You. Goes, you say you might be moving again. Don't know if I can take it. Starting over, making friends. It seems our life can never settle down. Rolling stones, our journey never ends. So
thank you for that.
Oh, that was a terrible rendition. But
No.
actually, like the day I wrote it, I went to Birdland, And there's kind of a high-level jam session there and open mic kind of thing, and I performed there pretty frequently. And so I actually sang it there that night.
Oh,
and
wow. The day you wrote it.
Yeah. The day I wrote it. I took a chart in for the musicians who were wonderful, and it was a simple song. Yeah, it was awesome. And I don't know if anybody who's listening knows who Michael Feinstein is, but he's like a big name in the American Songbook, and he was there. And one of the thrills of my life was when he took my hand and said, "That was a beautiful lyric," and I went, But anyway, yeah, that's the one you're thinking of. But I'd sing the other ones too. Built for Comfort is about being happy with the body that you have and not obsessing about some ideal. So I choose that on purpose.
Yeah.
That song is about liberation from obsessing about body size and type and weight. Wild Women Don't Have No Blues is about freedom from the strictures of society saying who or what I ought to be as a woman. So yeah, I mean, I picked these songs on purpose, and the ones that I write, I've written Rise Up and Shine, which is, a song about being your full self, letting your light shine, letting it be who you are with joy and fulfillment. And then I wrote, some other songs about social justice that have to do with the injustices of the world. And I'm still a really strong advocate for social justice, for against the oppression of the poor, the marginalized, the immigrant. I feel that I'm a Christian. I feel that I need to do what Jesus said to do. And Jesus said to care for those people, and that when I'm caring for those people, I am loving Jesus. And so that's the Jesus we should be listening to. And I feel that that's needed more than ever now. So yeah, the concert that I have on February 2nd is really about, I'm going to be doing most original songs, mostly mine, but at least one song by a friend about what we've been talking about, the journey of spiritual, physical transformation. I wrote a song called Smile to the Pain, and some about social justice. And those songs are it's an intimate experience. These are this is my core self that I'm going to be singing about. And so I'm a little nervous, but I've been wanting to do this concert for a really long time.
And so it's on February 2nd at Waller's
Coffee House in Decatur.
Okay.
From 4 to 6.
Is that a Sunday?
On a Sunday.
And what's your website? Is that where people can get more information?
Yes, it's singouteileen.com. And Eileen is spelled Eileen. So SINGOUTEILEEN.com. A lot of people don't know how to spell Eileen, so that makes it challenging.
It is spelled so many different ways.
I know.
So on your website, your phone number, your contact information is on your website, right? Your phone or email. Okay.
Yeah.
If people want to get in touch with you
Absolutely.
at all.
And I'm on Facebook, Eileen Howard, vocalist.
Okay.
So.
Well, before we close, I have these healing questions that I like to ask my guests. How would you describe your knowing or perception of God?
That has changed for me over the years. I feel God as a presence, and I feel God as love and joy. When I am in meditation and prayer, I often feel physically that God is present through tingling in my spine and a sense of really tingling on my whole body. I don't think God is some kind of puppeteer up here, but I do feel that there is a presence of love in the universe, and that we can tap into that through prayer and meditation and kindness and love and joy. I feel God in laughter. I feel God in music. And I think those things aren't explainable as just why do we have those? We don't need those for survival. So I think that those are sort of, to me, proof of the presence of God.
That's really nice. How we don't need those for survival. That's an excellent point. When do you most feel the presence of the Spirit of God? Is that when you're...
Usually meditation, but I mean also, singing is a key one. But meditation is often where I feel that and especially, there are times when I have just reached out and said, show me what you want, open whatever doors I need, or sent love to someone. And I really feel that presence while I'm doing that.
What do you think God calls you to do for yourself and others through your work?
I think spread joy. When I worked a lot, did music with marginalized people, and I have now, looking back, I feel like really it was about spreading joy and community. We would do these community dances, concerts, where people could come, and it was, alcohol and drug free and a safe space, and offer them food, and people would come and dance, and people would say, like, you gave me my social back, meaning the community.
Yeah.
And they would feel safe and joyous and connected with other people. And I think community is not a small thing. When you connect people in a concert experience or a dance experience or both, and I don't know. I've really revised it. I just think it's spreading joy and love. That's my mission. That's just my mission in my music.
Yeah.
And acting as well, where I just I really want to be a vessel. I don't mean to sound like some kind of guru. I just want to be a vessel.
Yeah.
I want my higher power to sing through me to help heal hearts. I used to have my very first voice teacher, and he said, instead of break a leg when you do theater, he said, heal a heart. Heal a heart.
Oh, gosh. I love that.
So like before a concert or a show, heal a heart.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
I think if we all we all have our unique path. And if we all took the mindset of being a vessel in whatever way that looks like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Tell me about a time when you had a miracle or a blessing and you said, God totally did that. I had nothing to do with it.
I'm pausing because I need to think about, what I can talk about. The first thing that comes to mind does have to do with my mom. When I was out seeing family in the Seattle area, I really had a strong premonition that I needed to drive over. It was a 4-hour trip over to the other side of the Cascade Mountains to my aunt and uncle, because I didn't know if it might be the last chance to see them. And my mom couldn't drive and hadn't seen her sister in a while. So I took my mom. I really prayed before doing that I would just be, patient and kind and be of service, to my mom, to my aunt and uncle. And without going into details, we had a conversation in the car, my mom and I. And then also, it was the last time I saw my uncle. He passed away shortly after. So there was a lot of, I think, higher power inspired elements of that. And the day that I flew out, so we basically drove over, saw them, came back, and then we left. And so the next day after this trip, my mom said, come into my office. I want to talk to you. And, she's my mom. So I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? What's wrong? Am I in trouble? And basically she said, I just want you to know how much that conversation meant to me and that you're my hero. And I was just really honored and touched. And, to me, that was my higher power. Continuing to heal my relationship with my mom, and my prayer to my higher power to be of service was answered. I was of service to my mom. I was of service to my aunt and uncle. And my mom said how much she admired me. And that's so weird to hear as the kid, you know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that was just like really a beautiful, beautiful moment.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you.
I can see how emotional it is. Thank you so much. Well, so the last question is, do you see yourself as a healer, a seeker, or both?
Well, both. Always both. And I don't see myself as a healer. Again, a vessel, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the minute you put ego into things, I find there are two real killers of everything to do with God. And one is money and the other is ego. You know, as soon as, for example, you know, as soon as I start thinking about the money when I do concerts, you know, am I going to make enough? Am I going to be able to pay the musicians? You know, that kind of thing. Oh my gosh, it just kills the joy.
Yeah.
So I just have to let go and let it be.
Mm-hmm.
Great words from Paul McCartney. And so I'm not the healer, but I do hope that my music is a healing thing, and that my concerts are a healing thing. And when I participate in theater, that it's a healing thing. I'm not always successful about leaving my ego out of it. I get, you know, nervous about whether people will come. Mm-hmm. It's easy for me to get irritated with, like, you know, if I'm in theater experience and things aren't right to my liking, you know, I mean, I have character flaws I have to, you know, deal with. So the seeking part really is every day I have to remind myself I am a flawed human being. These are the flaws that I'm turning over to my higher power, and I'm going to let my higher power work on me. And when I make a mistake, when I'm a jerk, I try to note it and apologize and be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always seeking. I really know of no better way to put it than I am really, truly a follower of Jesus. And by that, I mean trying to do what Jesus said to do. We need more of that in the world because Jesus was a peacemaker. Jesus cared for the marginalized, the outcast, and also had lots of recommendations about how to stay closer to God and find the kingdom of heaven here at hand. And I do think that music and laughter and joy and love is the kingdom of heaven here at hand. And we can access that when we stay on that track. Yeah. So I'm always seeking to be more of a vessel and less ego.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for being so authentic and open.
Thank you.
It's been a joy.
What a lovely experience. I'm so happy that you do this podcast.
Oh, well,
you're a wonderful person.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to talk to you on this podcast.
Likewise. You're like my first champion here, you know.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Remember that you can listen to all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and our podcast YouTube channel. Also, remember to follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. Until next time, let's start healing.